this is looking at different, more kind of entrepreneurial approaches to fundraising and innovation. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. I've always been interested in innovation and how you bring those entrepreneurial principles into what we're doing. And I got really interested in this about 3 years ago, and I was lucky enough to be asked to do some work with the Sadler's Wells team, a great fundraising team. And they wanted to look at innovation. And one very simple thing that I did was ask them to do a bit of homework. And I said, well, will you all go away and find one example of innovation in either arts fundraising or charitable fundraising that you think is really, really brilliant? And they struggled like mad and racking their brains and really thinking about what was innovation. And the best thing they came up with, and the thing the team came up with, was the I Love Dippy campaign at the Natural History Museum, which is a really savvy, great campaign. But I thought, well, you know, that's not real innovation. It's done really well, but is that real innovation? And when I'm leading training on fundraising, I now ask this question. And if we have more time, I'd ask all of you, you know, what have you seen that's genuine innovation? And I think when we boil it down, there isn't much genuine innovation in fundraising practice in terms of what we do. And as arts organisations, in my experience, it's actually really, really easy to stand out and find those things. But the other thing that I notice is that quite often people are asking me or colleagues, you know, what's the latest thing? What's going to solve our fundraising challenge? And quite often they're looking at the digital innovation and, you know, what's the latest crowdfunding platform and whatever. And those things are not really reaping that reward in the way that they're looking for. And what I've boiled it down to is that the organisations that, in my view, are really getting ahead are doing some very simple things very well. So, because I've got a marketing background like Sarah, I've created my own sort of 4 Ps on this. The first is people. Matthew's already said it. You've got to look after your relationships. So the organisations that are getting ahead are looking after their relationships brilliantly. The second one is place, and by place I mean organisations that are really understanding what the needs are in the community. I come across a lot of arts organisations that are doing education work, that are working with schools, and when you ask them why they're working with those schools, they've sort of forgotten why they're working with those schools. They're not really, if you're being honest, at the heart of what the needs are in that community. So place is a really big one. Partnership is the third one. We hear a lot about partnership, but I mean really adding value on partnerships, really taking care of partnerships, really doing them brilliantly. And the final one, which is the biggest one almost for me, is positioning, which is, for me, brilliant fundraising. Just does 2 things really well. It has a simple message and it has a distinctive message. And I think too often we forget about that messaging and we're not being really defined when we're talking to funders about what's important. So innovation for me actually comes down to some very simple basic principles, and it's certainly not about the jazzy new technique that might be on the block, because I'm just not seeing that.
Okay.